For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Because Progressive offers discounts for paying in full, owning a home, and more. Plus, you can count on their great customer service to help you when you need it, so your dollar goes a long way. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save on car insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
Tired of trying diet after diet without results? Mochi Health offers a long-term weight loss solution personalized to your needs. Our board-certified obesity doctors and registered dietitians provide expert guidance to help you succeed. Eligible patients can access custom-formulated GLP-1 medication at an affordable set price delivered monthly. Take our free quiz at joinmochi.com and use code AUDIO40 for $40 off your first month. That's joinmochi.com.
BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for betting on all the madness. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds on everything from college basketball to a $200,000 bracket contest, BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every Cinderella story to every hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here.
This is the FunBelt Podcast, part of the Believe Network.
Hosts to Dusty Thibodeaux of Warhawk Report, Jeremy Harper of Powell Razor, and Shane Mettlen of the Daily News Record.
I think it's potentially a very good week for the Sun Belts.
But I'm just kind of going off on a random rant. It's just frustrating. It's March Madness is finally here, and that is why we are Jeremy free. Shane, he is still, I think, drunk, partying. He's probably still in the Convo Center after Arkansas State got that straight whooping against St. Louis to open up the NIT.
Yeah. Congrats to the Red Wolves. Two teams that had high expectations coming into the season. And Arkansas State, I think, comes closer to living up to them. They wanted to be in the NCAA tournament, but to put a whooping on St. Louis in the NIT is not too bad for a one bid league to do that. You know, honestly, some of these mid-majors who are always one-bid leagues have looked pretty good in the NIT, including the Sun Belt.
And I love the NIT. I love the NCAA tournament as well, but I love every tournament that's out there. But is it that the G5 needs to kind of be careful and not kind of shine in these lower tournaments or the perceived lower tournaments? Because it's looking more and more like it's going to be the big boys and everyone else in these tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely does look different this year with the crown, whatever it's called, that Fox created to put their teams on. Does make it look weird. And I just have no interest in that tournament. Like, for some reason, even though there's like good teams in it, they're not, just knowing that it was put together basically just as like a TV show for Fox with the leagues that they deal with, but these teams aren't good enough to be in the NCAA tournament. I just have no interest in that one compared to the NIT, where it is teams who maybe just didn't quite get in, or, didn't win their conference tournament, or have something to play for, have something to prove. Like, to me, it just feels like a lot more legit. And even if it wasn't for Arkansas State, I think I'd still pay a lot more attention to the NIT.
Call me Louisiana biased. The one team I will kind of follow in the crown is Tulane. They're from the boot. You got to support them. But that's a whole nother conversation there. Sunbelt basketball with their NCAA representative there of the Troy Trojans. They draw Kentucky on Friday in Milwaukee. A lot of great interviews there from head coach Scott Cross. I don't know what's better when he talks about every year there's that 14 seed that always gets a win. And I think we're the best 14 out there, or that he revealed that he recruits by Waffle House. What's the bigger storyline for you there, Shane?
Oh, definitely the Waffle House one. He's not telling any secrets that 114 is probably going to pull off an upset. We've all seen the brackets. We know that. And his team is pretty good. I'm not sure it's a great matchup for them with Kentucky. We can get into that later, but the Waffle House thing was perfect. Like to kind of, have that interview as the underdog coach where you endear your team to the nation by pulling out something like that. You also, maybe you just set up some NIL deals for your guys next year, with all this Waffle House stuff, especially if you pull off an upset in the first round. Why wouldn't Waffle House want to get the Troy guys in a commercial if that happens? I think that was just a perfect interview for a guy in Scott Cross's situation.
I don't think he would let his players. I mean, I know how much the man loves some Waffle House. He's going to take the spotlight on that. I hate to break it to everybody. He's going to be selfish. But no, I think that the point that he was driving home of how he recruits guys that like Waffle House was, you're in Troy, Alabama. Mm-hmm. You're doing good to have the Waffle House there. There's not going to be the 2-star restaurant, the 5-star restaurant. You're going to be eating some Waffle House for your year that you're there. Hopefully your 5 years that you're there. You better love it, because that's going to be the places that you are. And I think that's important also to point out that is, talking from Troy's perspective, that's us. That's who we are. That's what we have. Like it or leave it.
Yeah. And I mean, basically what he's saying too is, as a program, you have to know what you have to sell and then get the guys who want to buy what you're selling. And, they've done a great job of that. And, they bring a bunch of guys from the Dallas area where Scott Cross has those connections. And, for whatever reason, they seem to be guys who are fine moving to a small town, even if they're coming from the big city. They're fine leaving Texas for Alabama. They want to be there, and they want to be there together. And I don't know if they'll keep everybody around in this off season. They're going to have guys get big time offers, but they were able to put together an actual team in this era where it's kind of hard to do.
Especially at the mid-major level where your guys are getting poached left and right. Again, hats off there to the Troy Together collective, able to really fight for, especially in basketball. One thing that's interesting, we'll have to get Jason Jones back on to discuss. Was it that they just kind of picked basketball because it would be, I don't want to make it sound like it's simplistic, but is that the easier sport to really focus on, put all your NIL money towards, to really see the fruits of your labor? Because you have 13, 15 guys, as opposed to a baseball team where you're going to have 30 plus. Football, is its own animal when it comes to that type of payout.
Yeah, I think so. And, even in the Sun Belt where there are some schools that really love their baseball and get a lot out of it. It's a revenue sport at, say, Southern Miss, but you get more bang for your buck putting NIL into basketball. If you can find 7 or 8 good players, there's lots of really good basketball players out there too. You don't have to get all the 4- and 5-star guys, because there's always guys who are overlooked. And if you get them on your team with a little bit of NIL, keep them around. If if Troy wins this week, beats Kentucky, that is just absolutely massive for that school, for the program, for the Sun Belt. They'll build off of that. they'll get paid directly because they won a game and they play an extra game in the NCAA tournament. Like, what they've done with their collective can pay off this week with an upset victory. It already did pay off because they got to the NCAA tournament. Like, yeah, I think it's not that you want to ignore baseball, football, and these other sports, but, maybe an outsized NIL for basketball does make sense if you're a group of 5 mid-major program.
For sure. I think you got to pick the sport and really drive all your efforts into it. One program, though, that will not be dancing, even though they were invited to the dance, they got all dressed up, they were pretty, they were ready to go, and then it got yanked out from under them. South Alabama was invited to the NIT as an at-large bid, and then immediately had the rug pulled out from under him, saying that no, UC Irvine, who had already committed to another tournament, was going to take that spot. Who's at fault for this, Shane?
It's the NIT, the people who run it, and which is the NCAA. And I think I know it was Keith Gill and Dan Gavitt who made the call to South Alabama and, put the invitation out there, told Richie Riley he could tell the players, and then had to call back and say it. I don't know if they were the guys who made the decision that you're going with Riverside or not, but it's just, you got to be more organized than that. I mean, hell, even if you have to wait till Monday to make your announcement of your bracket, like, is it that big of a deal if that comes out Monday morning, but you've got the right teams, like, and who's accepted and who hasn't? Because the same thing happened on the women's side, not the same thing, but they had an issue last year on the women's side with the WBIT where they weren't organized. They didn't know who was accepting the bids and who hadn't. They announced Miami was in that tournament. Miami had turned them down, but they still announced that they were in it. JMU's head coach had to tell Stony Brook's head coach last year, they were friends. She called him just to get advice on how to travel to Miami. He's like, you're not going to Miami. You're coming here. And he's the one who broke that to her. Like, they're just so unorganized. That's obviously not devastating news to tell your team. Not the same thing, but it's just, it goes back to, like, get your ducks in order before you start announcing this thing.
Is there a way that you can make that situation right? Like, does South Alabama, short of going 0 for next year, do they kind of get the mulligan and they're in the NIT regardless next year as an at-large?
I don't know that you can make her. I don't know you can make it up next year. It's not even going to be the same guys. I mean, they should have just, once they told South Alabama they were in, they should have told Riverside, no, go to the other tournament. Like, it's not like they were it's not like they won the West Coast Conference or the Big West or whatever they're in. They weren't the top team in that league, so deserving of a spot in the NIT that you couldn't send them off to the CIT or whatever it was that they were also picked for. Like, yeah, I feel like once you told South Alabama you were in, you have to tell everybody else it's too late.
But is that also up to Commissioner Gill to fight a little bit more, to fight a little harder for his member institution of, hey, you extended the invite. You should live up to that deal.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what the conversations actually were like, and who screamed at who and everything else, and who made the ultimate decision. But yeah, I mean, you could say, if you want to give Keith Gill some flack for not making sure South Alabama got in, I think that's fair. I think maybe people have taken it a little too far, saying he does nothing for Sunbelt basketball when there's been a lot of strategic plans to try to improve basketball over the past couple of years. But yeah, in this particular case, if you want to put it on him, I don't think that's unfair.
Switching over to the women's side, there's a lot of teams in the dance there. We love it. Obviously, the NCAA tournament it is Arkansas State headed to Storrs, Connecticut to face UConn. Great year for Coach Dez and the Red Wolves, but that's going to be a dogfight that they're just not going to be able to take on.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, not only do you have to go play a powerhouse like UConn, a UConn team they haven't, it seems crazy to say, like they haven't won a national championship in a while. And now they've got their players healthy. They really, really want, they're going to be fired up for this tournament. It's always tough on the women's side when you have to go play a true road game in the first round. And I think playing at UConn might be like the most devastating, maybe other than South Carolina, maybe the worst place to have to go do that and play a true road game. So if it gets ugly for the Red Wolves on the women's side, I wouldn't be surprised, but they're dancing. That's the most important thing. They're in the tournament.
And they're the only team from the women's side, at least, that is going to be a road team. Everyone else is hosting or should be hosting, with Troy getting that bye into the second round of their tournament. They'll play the winner of the Alabama A&M UT Chattanooga game. But Davison, the fighting Steph Currys, are headed to James Madison. What have you seen out of that game? And is this kind of a JMU out to prove themselves that they should have been the at-large team in the NCAA tournament?
That's what you hope, is that, they're out to prove something in this one, that it's not just like going through the motions because they didn't get into the NCAA tournament. Because we've seen previous JMU teams be in a similar situation. 2019, they were one of the first four out. They went all the way to the semifinals of the WNIT that year, lost to Northwestern. That the next year, that was like a, national championship contending Northwestern team. So that was a really good team they lost a close game to. That team was out to prove something when they didn't get to the NCAA tournament. We'll see if this group is the same. You never really know exactly how they're going to respond. Like, they were disappointed they didn't get an at-large bid, but I think if they do come to play, they have a chance to make a deep run.
Is there a chance that they also are kind of pity-partying, that they're just like, woe is us, we weren't good enough to get into the dance, we're kind of settling for this?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a chance of that happening. I mean, the people that they brought out to talk to the media this week aren't the ones who are feeling that way. I mean, I think they chose some people that were going to say the right things, but we'll see how they come out as a team tomorrow night against Davidson. Davidson's not bad. Certainly capable of beating JMU, but I think if JMU plays their best, they could maybe even win the WBIT.
The WNIT, which is the actual buy-in tournament there, not the WBIT, that is the NCAA women's version of the men's NIT tournament. Is that confusing enough there for you there, Shane?
Yeah, it is, because the NIT used to be the WNIT used to be the NIT of women's, and now it's not. If that clears it up anymore.
On Saturday, Old Dominion will once again play host for their postseason. They're going to host Navy 2:00 on Saturday. I like the chances, honestly, in all of them, but the Arkansas State. And that's not to say I think Arkansas State's just going to roll over and UConn's going to put a whooping on them. But that's the only game I really see that I'm just like, it might get kind of ugly. Everything else, I could see the Sunbelt on the women's side advancing to the next round.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. They all get to host, like you said. It's a big deal. Have a few of your own fans in the building, get a chance to sleep in your own beds, all that stuff. You're not riding a bus for a long trip somewhere. Yeah, I think it'd almost be disappointing if, like you said, everybody but Arkansas State doesn't move on.
And the other one in the NIT there is Coastal Carolina hosting regional rival, the Fighting Camels of Campbell. That's a lot of Sunbelt basketball in the postseason, and I love it.
Yeah, a lot more on the women's side. I think on the men, just probably didn't work out to to buy your way into some of these tournaments when a lot of these teams have to start getting ready for the portal that's about to open.
Opens on Monday there, and I know that we'll see some shuffling. We've already seen it. Jeremy usually has his fingers on the pulse of that, knowing that all of the ULM roster, for instance, is in the portal or graduated. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. And on that front, ULM welcomed in the 8th head coach of Warhawk basketball, Phil Cunningham. He was an assistant last year. It's not his first rodeo, though, in the Sun Belt, having coached at Troy and Western Kentucky when they were in the league as well. Was able to take the Troy Trojans to the NCAA tournament in his tenure there with Troy Trojans. I always like when the new blood comes in because I feel like you're going to get a boost. This past year, it was a struggle with 7 wins, so I feel like the Warhawks automatically kind of get into the double digits on the win side. But there's a lot of fans that are not happy about this hire there, Shane.
Yeah, and I kind of understand it. I mean, I understand wanting some fresh blood if you're ULM. Like, it's not like you're promoting an assistant from within when you're coming off great success and you want to keep things rolling. I can understand wanting to kind of turn things over and just start from scratch. But at the same time, you do have a guy in there who knows how things work at ULM, who knows the challenges of that job and knows the league. I can kind of get giving him a shot, especially if maybe, I think from everything we've heard, they took some bigger swings at some guys, weren't able to land them. If this is what you settle on, quote unquote settle, I don't think it's huge. Like, I don't think you're necessarily settling that much to get a former head coach in as your guy at ULM.
Yeah. And, I keep telling everybody, look, you got to give him a chance because everyone wanted Richard gone. Richard's gone after 15 years at the helm of the Warhawks program. Give the guy a chance. I mean, he has not coached the first game. He has not done anything to really tip his hand of what he can or can't do. I also feel, though, that he's a little guilty by association because he was an assistant last year. He's kind of tied to that 7-win season. And so it's going to be tough for him to kind of win over the crowd, so to say, and see what exactly he brings to the table. On that note, he was introduced on Tuesday. Already the X was blowing up of him slinging offers left and right. I hadn't seen a ULM basketball offer go out in a year.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense. If you're Richard, does it even work to offer somebody knowing you're not going to be there? So, they do have to turn our roster over fast. He knows what's there, what's not, what they really need. Yeah, kind of just going back to the original part of it is, this is a guy who has seen firsthand what's worked and what hasn't there. Like, I'm sure he had his own ideas that maybe he wasn't able to bring to the forefront. I say give him a chance. Like, it's not necessarily the most win the press conference, awe-inspiring hire, but maybe he's had the right ideas all along and just hasn't been able to put his own stamp on it.
Yeah, so that's the news out of the Bayou. We'll see how that goes.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Because Progressive offers discounts for paying in full, owning a home, and more. Plus, you can count on their great customer service to help you when you need it, so your dollar goes a long way. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save on car insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
O'Reilly. You need parts? O'Reilly Auto Parts has parts. Need them fast? We've got fast. No matter what you need, we have thousands of professional parts people doing their part to make sure you have it. Product availability. Just one part that makes O'Reilly stand apart. The professional parts people.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine. And maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them. From disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
On the diamond, though, Shane, we got another big win with Southern Miss going and getting a nationally ranked Ole Miss in a neutral site game, 6-2 this week. Sunbelt baseball is just on fire this year.
Yeah, I mean, I personally have not dove into baseball a ton, but I am seeing some of these big victories. Like you said, Southern Miss has got a couple now. Seems like there's, some complaining coming out of Lafayette about what the bat and ball sports are doing right now. But overall, it seems like this could be maybe a year we see some Sunbelt teams get back to the super regionals and maybe even further.
It's weird to me, though, that it feels like baseball is back to being Sunbelt standard, but softball is definitely taking the hits. I mean, you have kind of a top of the league there with Texas State, South Alabama, ULM, all 3-0, Texas State on a 7-game winning streak. But then you look at the bottom, James Madison 0-3, App State 0-3. The Cajuns 1-2, just not programs that you expect to see there in that lower half of the standings.
Yeah, I mean, when the Sun Belt expanded, I think people were pretty excited about softball because you had the Cajuns, obviously, with their long-standing streak of Sun Belt series wins, which came to an end after God knows how long. And then you're adding
89 Sun Belt Conference.
Yeah. And then you're adding, Southern Miss. I don't know what they've done in softball really, but if they can be that good in baseball, there's no reason they can't be great in softball. JMU was pretty fresh off a College World Series appearance. I mean, when the league expanded, you're thinking, oh, now you've got two teams that could possibly get to a College World Series in Louisiana and JMU. JMU just hasn't done it since then. They haven't been to that level. And now we're seeing the drop off after a long, long time from the Cajuns, losing their coach and some star players. I mean, I think Sunbelt softball will be back because there is the facilities and things there. But we've talked about it. I've talked about it specifically with JMU. It's hard now that there's other teams in this region, other schools in this region that decide they care about softball. I think that's happening everywhere, though. I mean, Texas Tech decides they care about softball. That's going to take some of those players from Louisiana, Texas, some of those recruits that maybe were looking at the Sun Belt before. And I think the Sun Belt will be back, but programs got to figure out how they're going to combat this being a different world in the softball side of things.
And you also got to look at the changes in Lafayette. You knew that was going to be a little different, right? The head coach goes off to Texas Tech, takes some players there from the roster. The pitching leaves of Sam Landry goes to Oklahoma. You have a new coach coming in, a new roster. You knew it was going to be a down season, but I have no doubts in my mind that over the long haul, they'll be right back to where they are. But over the short term, this season might be a little bit of a struggle bus.
Yeah. And you just didn't really know what a down season, like what the definition of a down season for the Cajuns was
exactly.
going to be. Is that going to be like, oh, they only win the Sun Belt by, 5 games, or like, do they finish 4th? Like, we'll see. I mean, it's still very early in the conference season, but everybody's going to take note when they lose a conference series.
On the baseball side, though, Shane, what's the bigger surprise you think? Texas State at 0-3 or Georgia State at 3-0?
I would say probably Texas State at 0-3. Both surprises to some degree, but you kind of you don't expect Texas State to get swept very often, and I'm sure they'll bounce back, but that's probably the bigger surprise to me.
I think the fact that Georgia State went 3-0 against South Alabama, it's who they went up against, to me, was the bigger surprise, that it wasn't a different team in the Sun Belt Conference standings. But we're still ranked. We have at least Coastal Carolina, Troy, and Southern Miss still finding themselves in the top 25. It's going to be a great second week of Sun Belt Conference baseball. So that's it, Shane. We made it through without Jeremy. Go figure. He's hopefully alive. We have not heard from him since the Red Wolves win, so we will have to see if he is around for the next episode, or if when the Red Wolves win again, if he will be MIA again.
Yeah, it could be a deep run in the NIT for the Red Wolves. We may never hear from Jeremy again if that happens.
Well, we won't hear from him, but when we see on like TMZ of Arkansas State fans streaking down Broadway, I'll be like, yeah, okay, we know where he's at.
Yeah, he'll blame that on his twin brother, but we'll know.
If I had a twin brother, you better believe I would. So to wrap up this episode there, Shane, to get ready for the dances that start there on Thursday, or I should say continue on Thursday, plug, promo, parting shot. What do you have?
I'll do a parting shot, something we were talking about off the air, but get a little bit of football into this show, which is rare for us to not have any football. We were talking about, spring football kind of in full swing most places, but it seems like a lot of coaches are not as enthusiastic about spring football this year, trying to figure out how they're going to balance showing some enthusiasm for spring ball without showing the world what they have for spring ball. Texas, I think Nebraska, we've heard some places where they've gone ahead and canceled their spring game. I don't know if that's happening much around the Sun Belt, but it does seem like everybody's trying to be a little bit more careful about what they show, what they put out there, how many people they're having out to do interviews. I think you're seeing that at ULM. I think at JMU, they talked to about it a little bit, like, just how much they want to say about their team. But they are going to have a spring game. I love spring games for a variety of reasons. Usually the weather gets nice. It's kind of almost like the first gathering of spring in a lot of places like Harrisonburg or Monroe or, any of these Sun Belt towns. I love spring football. I love spring games. I love when basketball recruits show up to spring football games. I love everything about it. So I guess this is my parting shot, is I'm glad that there's still going to be something of spring football in the Sun Belt, because I'm worried in a few years we may not even really have spring football as we know it. So that's my parting shot.
The early word out of Warhawk camp is essentially, nope, there's no football here, nothing to be seen. And there will be a spring game, but it's on a Thursday night on the Bayou.
So it's going to be on ESPN then?
Probably the U.
Okay.
I didn't say ESPNU. I just said the U.
The U.
My plug is going to be, because we haven't got to talk TV in a while, I finally fired up the Paramount Plus Landman with Billy Bob Thornton. Amazing show about the West Texas oil fields. I'm only a handful of episodes in, but already we've seen the legendary Odessa Permian featured in Friday Night Lights. There's guys that are getting injured. There's great drama. It's very much a straight up West Texas oil field show. Love it. Suggest it. Jump in and start watching it there, Shane.
Yeah, I've seen the whole first season. I agree with you. It's very good. Craziest thing about it, you're not there yet. No joke. Jerry Jones should get an Emmy for his scene in that show. Like, best guest star of the entire year. He legitimately should win an Emmy. He can actually act. It's crazy.
Yeah, he acts like an owner every weekend.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.